Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Joni Young and I'm going to show you how I painted Moon River today. I'm going to be using phthalo blue, neon pink, titanium white, and a few other colors that I'll list below in the description box. Working on a 16 by 20 black primed canvas with a large 3-inch round chalk brush. I'm going to begin by taking some white and slowly making a circle up in the top left corner. Now I'm going to take both pink and phthalo blue without washing my brush off, along with some more white, and I'm going to start building up this background, just creating big, soft, puffy circles. I'm going to pull it right up into part of that white, and these are going to be some big, puffy clouds, and I'm just going to keep adding and adding, layer upon layer, using this brush, and then I'll come in with a few other brushes and I'll be sure to list those below as well. I'm going to create some very soft sun streaks and sun rays just by pulling on an angle with this brush, and then I'll come in and do some brighter ones later with a flat brush. I'm going to take a lot more of my neon pink and begin doing another layer here, starting from the far right, pulling and just creating more circles, not pushing too hard. Now when the pink blends in with the blue, it's making a very pretty violet color. And I'm going to keep adding little bits of white to get some soft pastel colors in there too. Okay, now I've got my hacky goat hair brush. This is dry and it's very soft, and I'm just going to dust really lightly to give all the edges of these puffy clouds a blurry look. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my pink and white, still using this brush, and I'm going to create a few other layers, smaller this time, and a little bit brighter, just below where that brightest part of the canvas is right now on the top left. Then I'm going to softly pull and flick for some brighter sun rays, and then I'm going to add a few lines down here in the bottom to create our river. Now I just want to add a little bit more of my neon pink down here. I want it to be more of a purple color, so I'm going to just tap that on and then softly blend it. Now I've got a medium-sized Filbert brush. This is a number 8, and I just want to pull off some lines in the water to create some ripples and expose some of the black canvas underneath, still leaving a little bit of the paint on top so it kind of looks like a smoky gray color. So I'm just very gently scrubbing, scumbling off few layers of paint, like I said, just to expose that canvas and create more shadow and depth. And I'm just wiping it off on a towel nearby. Now I'm going to go back to the water and pull off some more paint, creating some streaks in the water and some ripples. Now you can use a Filbert brush or a flat brush for this. A flat brush would work even better because it doesn't have the rounded end, creating or causing a little bit of a curve or a slope. Okay, so now I'm going to start making my moons in the water. We're just doing almost a full circle. You can do a half circle if you want, and then we're doing a little bit of reflection below, so just a few little lines. And I'm using my Filbert brush for this because it's got that nice round end, so it makes the perfect shape and smooth top to our circles for our moons. I'm taking white with pink, more white than the pink, and then I'm going to make smaller ones for the distance. This will give us perspective, and then I'm going to make them larger as they come towards us in the foreground, giving us that feeling like we're maybe in a boat right in the water, kind of rowing through this. And then later on I'm going to add some more colors, neon yellow, turquoise, some neon orange towards the end that will be combining with white, so we'll just be tinting our white and making all sorts of pretty pastel colors. I'm coming in with another layer for the cloud up here, making some more peaks, and then I'm just going to soften with a little fan brush. You can use any brush you want for this. And then I'm going to use the fan brush to create some more ripples right under the moons. I'm going to add a little bit more of my pink and white up in the sky. Still using the fan brush. And I didn't know at the time, but right up here ends up being sort of a crescent moon at the end of the video. And I've just got my smallest mop brush here. It's dry, and I'm just very lightly dusting to soften some of those harsher lines. And I'm going to come in right underneath the peaks on this cloud too and soften this. Okay, I'm going to continue using this little brush to create some smaller moons back there. So that's just another option for you guys. You can use a Filbert brush or a really small mop brush. Doing the same brush technique, just pushing gently and pulling and twisting around. I'm going to push off some more of the paint up here. I'm pushing down into all of that white, just so I get a nice shadow right above those sun rays where they're starting from. We need a little bit more of a contrast right there, light and shadow. And then the excess paint that I'm pushing off, I'm going to use it over here and in some other areas. Okay, again with my Filbert brush, I'm going to continue to push off some more paint, exposing a bit of that canvas underneath. It looks gray right now, and then I'm going to come in right away with a little bit of phthalo blue and white. And now adding some more neon pink. Now I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of neon yellow and start mixing it with white and adding it to the moons. I'm not going to paint them solid because moons have darker patches and shadows on them, so I'm going to try to create that effect with all of these moons. I'm going to put a big one right here. This is going to be the biggest one, and it's starting right from the bottom of the canvas. So it really gives us that feeling that we're right there, water level almost. Okay, so I'm going to continue to add a little bit of white up in here, creating a softer, hazy effect. And I'm going to add a little bit down here as well, building up a few more layers. And then I'm going to wash my brush off, and we'll start coming in with a little bit of yellow pretty soon, but I'm just going to soften this and maybe make it look like there's a little bit more rays, little sun rays coming down off to the side. With a clean dry brush, titanium white, and a little bit of yellow, I'm going to gently apply a thin layer right over here on the top left. Now when it goes over top of the white, it's going to look like a really nice bright yellow, soft though, like a pastel shade, and then over the blue, of course, it's going to turn a pretty turquoisey color. Now I've got a long liner brush. I'm going to get it wet and I'm going to pull some more lines underneath the moons in the water to create even more highlights and ripples. Okay, I'm going to get all those little ones in the distance, tapping it sometimes too, just to create more of movement in the water, gentle movement and flow. And I'm going to wiggle and pull and twist my brush around to create soft little peaks way up top in the sky. I'm going to wash my brush off, and I'm going to add a little bit more white with just a tiny bit of yellow up there to make it really, really bright. Back to my Filbert brush. I'm going to add some more ripples right here in the water, more of a shadow this time by adding phthalo blue. And when I'm done that, I'm going to add a little filter of dry brush phthalo blue over here. And then I'm going to continue up on the very top of the canvas right underneath the bar of my easel. So I'm just going to tuck my brush gently under there and wiggle it around. Now that that's all dry, I'm able to do that with a very clean, dry Filbert brush again. I'm going to do another layer again with yellow and white, and I'm going to work a bit more on getting a better shape to these moons. I want them to look more round. And then I'm going to add a little bit of pink with my white and start adding a bit more of the pink to the yellow and creating just all sorts of light pastel shades one at a time as this video progresses. And I want to add just a few more way back here that will give us that feeling that the river is flowing way back there continuously. We don't know where it ends, and so I'm just going to add some lighter ones way back there, and I'm just going to soften with my finger. And then I'm going to wash my brush and start using a little bit of my turquoise. And I'm going to pull some into the water, adding to those reflections and those ripples, and then I'm going to incorporate some in each of the moons. And remember, you're just wanting to do a few little patches here and there. You don't want it to be solid looking. I'm just going to take a bit more of my white with my yellow and reshape this, redefine this moon here a little bit more, and that one as well. Once I finish doing this, I'm going to start adding a little bit of magical land way back there in the distance behind those moons and off to the right side. So right in here with what's left on my brush, which is just a little bit of white and yellow, I'm going to push and start flicking side to side, making it look like it's kind of a path or something that just kind of goes off and then disappears. Then I'm going to pull and flick up just for the faintest suggestion of maybe a tree that's going to start to form there, or a castle. I wasn't sure at this point what I was going to create there. I knew I needed something. And then wherever I want to have some shadows to make my castle stand out, I'm going to push and pull off some of that paint. So I'm not going to add any dark colors. I want this to have a really soft, glowy effect. So I don't want it to be too in detail. And I'm going to pull in another layer of sun rays now that all the other layers underneath are dry. And just using a bit of water with my white and my yellow and a flat brush. You can use a Filbert brush too. Okay, so now I'm going to start a little bit of a suggestion of a staircase back there by just sliding my brush in little lines. And then I'm going to turn my brush the other way and do tight little lines together up and down for a railing. So nothing too detailed or too complicated. Less is more. And I'm going to add a little bit more back here. We'll add a few more and some more highlights. Just working a layer at a time. So after adding some pink and white ripples in the water right here in the middle and some more blue and white, I'm going to begin adding some more moons. I just felt like something was missing right here. Originally I was thinking of putting a little boat there, but I didn't really like it, so I decided to go back to my original idea and just add some more moons in the water, and I like this a lot better. So I'm just going to start to play around in the background here, originally making some little tiny moons, and now I'm going to use some of those to pull and flick up and create some kind of magic world back here, just like a little magic kingdom. So I'm doing little skinny triangles for the peaks on them for the roofs, and or turrets, whatever you want to call them, and then just pulling and flicking for little lines. I want it to look really fuzzy and blurry, but not a lot of detail, but still at the same time we know something is there. So you don't have to do a whole lot to achieve that. Okay, I want to add some more ripples and highlights in the water, so again, just with that yellow and white. Pulling, sliding my brush sideways, leaving some little spaces in between so I don't get too much of a solid area of highlights. We want to have those ripples, so light and dark. And then some mid-tones, which will come in later with some more of the turquoise and some pink. I'm going to add another layer to my staircase over here. I'm going to work on this area a little bit more and then eventually start creating a tree. Okay, so I just want to start scumbling in. Very dry brush I have here so it looks really faded, and adding a little bit more to my magical kingdom back here. Just little lines and then some faint little archways and pointy little peaks for the roofs. Now you could use any pastel color you want for this. I'm using a little bit of pink and white, yellow and white, and then with hardly any paint on my brush, I just pull in a few more of my sun rays. I'm going to add to these moons. Now you could add more color to this painting if you want and really play up on it. It's up to you how much color you want. I was even considering doing only a gray and white background and then making the moons only in color. I was going to put little landscapes in them, and I still might have a few ideas for some future paintings, so stay tuned for those. So I'm adding a little bit of pink and white in this area, a very, very thin layer over top of that blue, and then I'm going to soften it with a dry mop brush. So I'm just twisting my brush, twirling it in little circles to give it that smoky, foggy kind of a look. And now I'm going to come in with a little flat brush and create a little tiny staircase over here. And I'm going to continue with my little magic kingdom, pulling in lines for the structures. Maybe this will be a little bridge too. I see a bit of an archway in there, so I'm going to try and make this have a little bit more flow to it and bring it up higher and then over. So with a little bit of white, it could be part of a bridge or maybe a railing. Okay, so after adding a little bit more to the background, I'm going to work on the ripples and the shadows in the water in the foreground. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of phthalo blue and adding a little bit of neon pink to it, and with my liner brush I'm going to do tiny little lines, kind of wiggly too, so we get that gentle movement in the water. So I'm going to go back and forth with different colors, rinsing my brush off in between. I'm going to do some highlights and ripples in the water with yellow and white. I'm going to be using pink and white, and I'll be using a little bit of turquoise as well. I think incorporating all these soft pastel tones really brings out the magic and the softness in this painting. So my original idea was to create little worlds and different scenes and landscapes in each one of these. So here, this is just kind of letting you guys see what it would look like, and you could decide to do this if you wanted to for your painting. But I ended up going over it because I felt like it was just taking away from the softness of this painting. So I'm just using a liner brush and I'm creating little trees on either side. And then I'm going to come in with a tiny mop brush and do some leaves and foliage on the top with some sap green and a bit of blue, pink mixed in just to change up the hue a little bit and tone it. And then I added a little bit of highlight, but yeah, I just decided to start softening it right in here, and then eventually I ended up going right over top of it. But I still think it would be really cool, so sometime in the near future I'm going to be doing one similar to this, but making little scenes and landscapes inside. Whatever versions you guys decide to do, I'd love to see them, so be sure to tag me in your posts on Instagram. So I'm coming in with white now. It's tinted with a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow at times, and I'm just pulling and wiggling, making my tree trunk thicker on the bottom and really making this a quirky old looking tree with lots of character and lots of curves and twists in it. Pulling and twisting and rolling my brush around to do this, to build up all the branches. And I've got a nice long liner brush to work with that makes this really easy to do. I want to have the tree roots growing down alongside the staircase here. And I'm coming in with a large round mop brush, a little bit of white, and just a tiny bit of blue. Tapping in for foliage. No water on my brush for this. So I'll build up a few layers for the tree and then add a little bit of bushes and foliage down below. And then I'm going to add a little tree and bushes over on the left side as well. Now the idea for the tree is to have some lights hanging down from it. I want them to be like little stars or little moons. And I just decided this is just something I like to do when I'm intuitively painting. It's part of my process. It starts to really get my ideas flowing. So I just add some, and I just think it looks pretty in a painting. So I just drip some paint and water down off the top of the canvas. And then I use it and incorporate it somehow in the painting, or I build up from it. Now in this case, I didn't really use it as much as I do in my other paintings, but I can't explain it. I just like to do that. I like the process of it, and it is really fun to do this technique when you're working on a forest or an abstract. Now here I was kind of playing around with a large bridge or a pathway that came up across, but then I decided to blur it out. And so my paint is still wet. I'm able to do that right away. Just sort of blend it out of there and make it sort of disappear. So the drips are mostly all gone now, and I'm just going to continue adding a few more layers of branches on this tree. I'm just deciding how many branches I want to have, how far I want them to come out or hang down, and I'm just going to play around a little bit here, adding some, taking some off. I don't like to leave out any of my process. I like you guys to see things that I change my mind about in a painting and how I go about taking them off. I think it can be helpful in your learning process. I'm adding some more white now on the top left. Now that that yellow has set in and is starting to dry, it's looking a little bit too, just too yellowy. I want to soften it. I want it to be like lemon chiffon or the color of butter. Very soft pastel. I want this feeling, the feeling of this painting to create a sense of calmness and contentment and comfort. So it's got to be soft, and I want to keep all these pastel tones in it. I don't want anything to look too harsh. So I'm going to define these moons a little bit more and build up some more rays, a few layers at a time. Sometimes I'm adding a little bit of white to my yellow, and sometimes I'll add a little bit of pink. Now later on what I do is add a little bit of neon orange to my white, and that's a really, really pretty color combined with a bit of yellow and pink. But the peach looks really nice with the purple in this painting. It's really complementary. So I'm just gonna enhance, add little flicks of that light fuzzy peachy orange that I've got in the sun rays and in the moons, and the ripples in the water. Okay, I'm just going to start to add a little bit more of that light peachy color, dry brushing and wiggling and dragging my brush around in the sky just to create some more mystery, but keeping it gentle and soft at the same time. Back to some ripples in the water and a little bit of a layer over top some of the other colors, so we're kind of filtering in. Once those colors are dry, we're able to go over with a thin layer of another color, and that's a really, really fun process for me. Okay, I'm going to add a few more little peaks to my little world and kingdom back there, and then I'm going to come in with a bit more yellow and white, and I'm going to start adding some dangling lights or stars. Just tapping and gently pulling using the corner of my brush, and then I'll switch over to a liner brush. I'll use my finger to soften a little bit. So white and yellow, sometimes just white. And then I want to make it look like there's a little chain or a string of lights hanging right here. So I'm going to curl over, pull and flick down, and then do little circles hanging on the bottom of some of them. It would also look really pretty if you made light pink ones and turquoise ones. You could have all different colors of lights and stars dangling from your trees. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add another layer over here. I'm going to add another little tree. So I'm going to take another round, oh no, this is an oval mop brush actually. So I started out with a very soft layer, that's for the background, and then I'm coming in with a little bit more paint this time, yellow and white. I can't go back to my other brush that I originally used because I washed it out, and once it's washed, the shape is ruined. I have to wait till it dries again. But this is another nice one that I found. I'm going to try and find a few more of these. So just adding a little bit more highlights to my foliage, keeping it very soft. Adding a little bit more of my color to my moons, and then back over to the tree with my liner brush for some branches and a little faint tree trunk there that you can hardly see. A few little dots for stars. This painting is just about done. I'm just going to add a few more finishing touches. A little bit of branches again over here, and then sweeping around to create a crescent moon. And any pastel color you want to use will work for this. I think I can see almost all of them that I used. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope I inspired you in some way. Please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more. I'll see you next time really soon in another video. Bye everybody!